Ladies and gentlemen, his bio says it all. Professional MMA fighter, fighting out of Eugene, Oregon, with a record of 8 wins and 2 losses. Currently on a 4-fight win streak with a background of wrestling, Muay Thai. This man is a jiu-jitsu trainer. He is the definition of mixed martial arts. Adam Fugitt.
Coming off his big first-round KO win at LFA 125, Adam Fugitt. Thanks so much for joining us, man. What's up? How's it going?
Not much. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate this. I hope you guys are doing well.
Oh, man, absolutely. Before we get into your big recent win, I actually kind of want to bring it back all the way to the beginning. How did you get into MMA in general?
Well, man, it just goes back to wrestling. I got into wrestling in high school. I was a multiple sport athlete going in, and I found wrestling and just immediately fell in love with the sport, man. The work ethic that you got to have to really just make it through that grind. And I found my passion. I did it for 4 years in high school, and I did 1 year in college. College was a cool experience, to go and do that and get to compete with some of the best guys. And just, shortly after that, it's like, I'm spending a little too much money just focusing on wrestling because I didn't really have a path. So I had to kind of walk away from that. But I found jiu-jitsu right after that. And luckily, my jiu-jitsu trainer had just kind of teamed up with the MMA gym that I'm at now, Art of War. And I jumped into a Muay Thai class thinking, hey, I'm going to bring it full circle one of these days to MMA, and I better learn how to strike. And I got the crap kicked out of me in my first Muay Thai class. And I was like, I need to focus on this. So for like the next 3 years, I just solely focused on my striking and Muay Thai and fighting all the way up and down the West Coast, up into Vancouver, BC, and all the way down as far as Arizona and California. Just competing in Muay Thai, facing some of the top amateur strikers on the circuit at the time that have now transferred over to the pros. Charles Rodriguez, who's in Glory, and Troy Trouble Jones, who's also in Glory, who fought for the welterweight title for Glory. Just some experiences that made me the kind of person I am today in the striking world. Finally kind of bringing it all together. I think it was like 2015 that I went pro in MMA after 3 amateur MMA fights.
Yeah, and I noticed that you actually finished those guys in your amateur run too. Like, it's funny because on the broadcast at the LFA fights, they mentioned your extensive Muay Thai experience. Can you speak on that a little bit? Even though I feel like kind of just did. Just how that prepare you for when you did make that transfer into full-time MMA?
Yeah, man, it's just the fact that I couldn't use any of my wrestling really in Muay Thai. I couldn't go back to that comfort zone. It really pulled me out of my comfort zone and made me have to learn how to defend myself on my feet and get comfortable with my striking. And it's definitely made me, a better fighter for it, going against guys like Charles and Troy, Trouble Jones, who I did lose to Troy, by the way, just going against those, being prepared, they're top level guys, that have that knockout ability, that have that finishing ability. And really, going in there and not just surviving against those guys, but really, finding my own groove and getting, some of my offense off. It just gives me confidence, So when I go against somebody like the Solomon Renfro, or, I have my confidence in my stand up. I know that I'm capable of competing, there. I don't have to, if I'm winning the fight on the feet, I don't have to, jump into the grappling. I have that confidence. But yeah, and it goes vice versa. If I feel like it's a 50-50 battle or I'm losing that battle, the odds are too close, I can change it up and go with my grappling and my wrestling and my jiu-jitsu. It just really makes me kind of, as my coach would say, kind of a Swiss Army knife. I just pride myself on being the best mixed martial artist. I picked the right tool for the right moment is kind of how I view it.
Nice, dude. And that sort of leads me into my next question, because when I watched your last recent fight against Solomon Renfro, you came out and you threw, I think it was 5 or 6 straight head kicks, and you had this extraordinary confidence in your strikes. You had like this set on look in your face where you almost knew you could do this until like what you just said, like having that experience in Muay Thai and then also the wrestling. How did you approach that first round, and is that the way you saw the fight going?
Yeah, I mean, really, that first round, we had contingencies all set up, right? That's like that was the initial round one part of the game plan. I told my coaches early on, it's like it's going to be whoever establishes that range, and I feel like the first one to back up in this fight is going to be the person that ends up losing it. That was kind of my mentality going in. And my Muay Thai coach, who was the guy that coached me all through Muay Thai, we were kind of sitting there game planning, and it just came back to something that I've always done in my striking, and that's utilizing that left round kick, be it to the head or to the body. Really, realistically, he really kind of shaped me after like a Yodson Clyde. So throwing the big left kick, throwing the right hook. So we knew coming out, we wanted to really set that range. You don't just get a walk in on me. You're going to have to go through that, kind of like a baseball bat. And I was explaining that to Alan Jobin, a little bit. He's like, oh, well, how are you going to set that head kick up? And it's like, oh, I'm not so much worried about the head kick. It's more like you have to get past this wall I'm going to set up. And once you do, that's when the next part of the game plan is going to unfold. I thought for sure he would kind of break through the line, and then we'd end up in some grappling exchanges. But I also knew I have that right hand in my, that I'm more than confident. It's kind of in my back pocket. I have that in my arsenal. So it just so happened that I threw the check hook, as he was coming in to strike, and yeah, it played out the way that, not exactly how we had seen it going, but for the most part, it played out pretty close to it.
Absolutely, man. Hard to imagine you get a 45-second knockout. But I think you mentioned a few times there your coaches, and it's really interesting to hear that you had the same Muay Thai coach you had in the beginning as you do now. Can you just mention some of your coaches and what's it like, to have this journey 10 fights into your career?
For sure. So my mixed martial arts coach is Jason Georgiana. He's the owner and the head coach of Art of War, where I train out of. And yeah, man, the 3 letters at the end of the gym is what we are. We're an MMA gym there. He really prides us on being complete fighters. I feel like anybody that kind of fights with us, even into our amateurs, you don't see a lot of one trick ponies, I guess you could say, or anybody that just thrives in one area. We try to be well-rounded. And a part of that is our striking, and we have a Muay Thai striking coach on hand named Cobb Tongsai. And he's been in the Muay Thai game for a long time. He's had a lot of Muay Thai fighters. I think his most established pro fighter to date was Jake Ramsey. He fought for WCK, another one of my teammates. But yeah, he's had plenty of amateur champions, and yeah, he's been with us since the start. And then after that, it's just kind of us fighters all getting together and really kind of trying to figure out game plans and blending styles.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of trying to devise game plans, I was going to ask you, do you watch tape on your opponents, or is that something that you leave up to your coaches?
So that's been recently implemented in my game. So my last fight before said pandemic and everything, one of my teammates, Chris San Jose, he started helping me kind of watch tape. It's not something that I really enjoyed doing, or I guess I can't say I really enjoy doing it right now. I've always just about focusing on my game. But I think it is important to do that. It's uncomfortable for me to watch, since my loss to Kalen Hill, you become very aware that you are human, that you can get, anybody can lose on any given night. Anybody can get finished on any given night. It doesn't take much, right? It's one mistake that could happen and you could be on your back. So ever since then, it's just all that awareness. It makes it uncomfortable to watch tape because, you know, I guess I'd say I'm kind of a realist, you know, I don't believe in like bad luck. So like when I see that a highlight reel or whatever, it's real hard not to envision yourself being in that other person's shoes, you know? But that being said, watching tape is important. You got to do it. So get over your anxiety and your fears and, you know, but I think that's kind of what this sport's about too, is overcoming those things also. So it's just another part of it.
Nice, dude. Nice. Really appreciate that answer. Speaking of which, watching tape on you must be hard because out of 8 professional wins, 7 are via finish. What's it about your style that allows you to finish or get the finish so often?
Uh, that's, I always kind of preach this formula, you know, and this goes back to my wrestling days, through into my Muay Thai days. And I've always thought, you know, you find a way to kind of, what's a good word? I'll just use it in an MMA standpoint, right? I'm going to find a way to make my opponent kind of feel that discomfort or some pain, you know, be it a left kick or a left straight or just whatever I can do. I'm pushing them up against the cage, dirty boxing, throwing some knees up inside. I want them to kind of feel that pressure and that pain, right? And once I get that established, pushing those lungs is the next step. You know, I really want them, you know, stressing over their cardio, feeling that burn in the lungs. And I kind of feel like if you can put your opponent in discomfort, pain, and make their cardio, test their cardio, push their cardio, and make them feel the weight of their, you know, that being tired, feeling those feelings, I feel like they'll give you the finish. You know, nobody wants to be in pain and be tired. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard fighters say that the one thing you don't want in the cage is to be tired no matter what's happening. Is That's the number one thing that they fear.
Correct. You know, so like I feel like if you can accomplish those two things, then inevitably they'll give you a finish, right? Not every guy can. You're not going to knock out every guy. I don't think that's a realistic expectation, you know. But you know, you can work them into a submission or a dominant position where you can get the ref to stop the fight, you know.
Absolutely. Last couple of follow-up questions we'll wrap it up. I do want to ask you, because I do think it's important to ask high-level athletes, whether any sport they play, this question. Well, I'll try to tie it for MMA here. What do you think is more important for a fighter's success, technique or mentality?
Yeah. Okay. It's both, right? But I'm not trying to dodge your question. I definitely think you need to have that mentality first. You need to have that mentality, and then you can work on that technique, right? Technique can be, you know, can be established over time. I think it's much more important to have that mentality first. And I think, you know, just examples from guys on that, you know, in other sports, other high level athletes, you know, you look at like you go, not even look, you go listen to Kobe Bryant talk about how he prepares, you know. That's all mentality, being in the gym that early for that long, having opponents show up to warm up and go, no, I'm not going to leave yet. I'm going to stay here and I'm going to train, you know, and let them see, like, no matter what, like, you can't out train me, you know. Having that kind of mentality is just second to none. Another guy, Dan Gable, you know, that just, I'm going to be in the gym. I'm going to work. I'm literally going to kill myself in practice. The fight is practice. When I step out on the mats, that's when I get to have, you know, my time, my glory, you know, and show everybody what I've been working on. So yeah, I definitely think that the mentality is first, and you can develop the technique second, for sure.
Awesome, man. Great answer. Thanks. Last question. With considering how quickly you got the job done in your last fight, 45 seconds, you really capitalized on that big opportunity. What can we expect to see you next? Where can we see you? You know, what are you expecting here in the future for yourself?
You know, I don't have anything set in stone right now. I'm hoping that we get something pretty soon. You know, I was on the shelf for 2 years, you know, with the whole pandemic thing. I want to get back there and in there and fight. And like I said, at the end of a fight, you know, I want to fight high level guys. I want to fight in that next, you know, that next tier. I want to see myself in that show. I want to prove that I belong there. And so, yeah, I hope to have something soon, for sure. I want to keep kind of riding this wave of this high that I'm on, cloud 9 a little bit, feeling good about myself, you know. So get back in there soon.
Absolutely, man. Thanks so much for your time. Our first ever Any Action Sportscast interview, our first ever guest. And, you know, can't thank you so much enough for your time. And I really do think we're going to see Adam in the big show here soon. So, man, thanks so much. Good luck in the future.
Oh, man, you're making me the first guy. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No problem, man. Thanks. You got a big fight coming up in the next pay-per-view. What's life like?
Same as always, man. 7 days a week training. Nothing's really changed. I'm just not as poor, which is really nice.